Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Honkai Star Rail video, and today we're going to do a character guide on Kafka. Kafka and Dr. Ratio just dropped. I will get a guide out on Dr. Ratio probably later this week, but I'm going to do Kafka here right away, and then we'll be covering some of the other new content on the channel as well. I'm actually recording this during a live stream, so if you are ever interested in seeing me live stream some stuff, definitely like and subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to know when I'm going live, and feel free to join my Discord as well. I haven't been promoting my Discord as much, and I should be doing that more on my Star Rail videos. So if you guys are definitely interested in Star Rail, my Discord is posted in the description of every video, and we do have some good chats in there if you want some help with Star Rail, want to talk about Star Rail, or if you like Dokkan, or want to talk about the City of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. All those things are a big part of my Discord. So with that, we're going to hop in, and Kafka is a character I don't actually have, so we are going to showcase her through the aptitude showcase here, which I think will be just fine. But in this video, we're going to talk about her best light cones, her best relics, and pretty much like the type of character she is and how you want to build her. So I'll just start by summarizing kind of what Kafka does. She's what we would call like a very offensive DOT character. And DOT stands for damage over time. And so she specializes in inflicting debuffs and punishing the enemies for having those debuffs that deal damage. And she works well with other DOT characters. And so what she does that's so good is she's going to make the DOTs hit a little bit harder. And DOTs, these are things like bleed, wind shear, burn. They're things that like the enemy takes a turn and then they take damage based on the stacks. Well, Kafka can actually make the DOTs trigger on your own turn, so you can actually like get a lot of extra damage out of DOTs, right? So what we'll do normally at the beginning of the character guide, I'll talk about the abilities more specifically. We'll do it in reverse this time because I have to wait till I'm in the aptitude showcase to show you her kit. But what I'm going to do is we're going to start off by just going through like the relics and the light cones and talk about what are kind of like the best builds for her, right? So let's go ahead and hop in, and I'm going to switch back here into my good old telephone. We're going to go into the databank, and let's go ahead and let's start with the we'll start with the relics here. So let's hop into relics here. So there's, to me, a very standard, like a pretty standout number one relic set you want. It's this one here. The Prisoner's Sealed Muscle. This is pretty much made for DOT characters. I think this was basically made for Kafka. So, I mean, I would just run this at a 4-piece set. It's going to give you 12% attack on 2 pieces. But the 4 piece is what you really want here. And this is a set you don't really bother with running on 2. If you're running this, I mean, you want it on a DOT character. You want those DOT effects. So on a 4-piece set, for every DOT the target enemy is afflicted with, the wearer ignores damage based on how many, and it will scale on that, right? And then it's valid for a max of 3 DOTs. So what, 6 times 3 is 24. So you can get 24% damage reduction for your DOT characters, which I think is very good. Damage reduction is a really important part of this game, or ignoring defense, I should say, right? It's ignoring defense so that you can really pierce through. This defense kind of shredding, we've seen it with characters like Pela, right? It's like a big part of this game and like getting the most damage out of your characters. So essentially this relic set just makes your character defense shred for free without the benefit of having maybe another defense shredder on the team. So I think this is very good. This is what you want to run. Now, Kafka is also a lightning character, right? So you could run the Sizzling Thunder set, which is right here. This one's going to give you lightning damage. And then when you use their skill, you're going to get an attack up. This one certainly is a fine set you could run. But when I'm building my characters, I really like to build into what their specialty is, right? And DOTs are really what Kafka is all about. So I would really just go with that DOT set, to be honest. So those are the 2 main sets you want. Now, when you're building the sets, right, how do you want to build the pieces, right? So let's go back into here. Remember, there's always 2 pieces that have a specialized stat that you want to make sure you get the right main stat on. So that's going to be the shoes, and that's going to be the body. So when we're looking at shoes, you definitely want either speed or attack percent, but I would recommend going speed. Speed is usually a pretty good go-to on a shoe for most characters. There's very rare instances, like I think Claire is like one of the few, right, where like speed maybe isn't your highest priority, but I think you do want to go speed here. If you don't get speed right away, once again, attack percent is a good stat to hold you over, but eventually you want to get speed there on your main stat. And on the body, I think attack percent is fine here. She is really a damage dealer. She's a nihility character with DOTs, but she definitely leans as a heavy damage dealer. So attack is going to be what you want there for sure. And then we can go ahead and look at the planner ornaments here. And I think, once again, things have been kind of shifting since this Frontier Gilmoth came out. This is the one that most DPS characters are wanting to lean towards now because it's a speed set, right? So what it is you get an attack up, and then when you have a certain speed threshold, you get extra damage. And because you're always going to want to be building your characters with speed, you're going to be putting speed boots on anyways. This is just like free extra damage. So this is definitely a highly recommended set. Previous to this, a lot of characters were running things like Space Stealing Station. I think if you already have this one built, maybe another character's using it, you definitely could slide this on there. This is going to, once again, you get attack, and then this gives you attack when your speed reaches a threshold, right? It's literally, this Gilmoth set is just a direct upgrade to it, right? Because they both give 12% attack, but the other one just gives you 12% attack when you reach 120 speed. This one rewards you for getting your speed higher, and you're getting actual more damage instead of just an attack stat. So think of this as just the more premium version of Space Stealing Station, right? I think Space Stealing Station is good for a character where you don't know that you're going to hit 135 speed, like you're going to be in that 120 to 130 range, and that's just kind of where you want them. Then yeah, you need to go Space Stealing Station. But provided you're going to get your Kafka to at least 135 speed, I think this is the set you want to go with there. And then what you want for the specific stats on that, Planner Sphere, very common here. You usually typically want the element of the character. So this one, you're going to want lightning damage. And then on the rope, I would say you would either want energy regen rate or attack. I think either one could be fine there. It's kind of your preference. If you want more damage, though, you definitely could go attack there, right? So that's the relics. Let's look at the light cones. Definitely for light cones, I mean, there's a lot of premium options you can run here. We'll talk about some budget options as well. So let's go ahead and look at Nihility here. So obviously her own light cone, which is featured on a banner, is definitely like the premium one you'd want, which is this one right here. Something I do recommend, when I do my Should You Pull videos, I usually don't talk about the light cone banners, but my general philosophy with light cone banners is I usually don't chase them right away. But a situation like this, where like, let's say you got Kafka the first time around, you see that you're using her a lot, you really like her. Then when she makes the rerun, then that's maybe a good time to jump in and get the light cone. That's precisely what I did with Sela. I got Sela on her initial banner, really liked her, I used her a lot, so then when she came back, I went and got her light cone. But Kafka's light cone is very good. It's a big damage upgrade. Every time you launch an attack, you increase your speed, which is good, and that speed definitely is going to help you with that the planner ornament set that you're going to be running, right? It inflicts erode to the enemies. And it basically counts as like an extra shock DOT that's really going to help her damage, right? So obviously that is going to be by far the best light cone if you can grab it. The other one here is the Silver Wolf light cone, another good premium option you can run. This is really going to help with effect hit rate. It's going to deal more damage if the enemies have more debuffs. You're going to get crit rate. So, I mean, this is just another very offensive light cone you could go with. The other premium one, which may be like, let's say I got Kafka right now, I'd probably use this one because this is the one I have. But this is Welt's, which is another fairly offensive light cone. It's a little generic. It's just some straight stats, right? It just increases your damage, and you just get attack ups. That's about it, right? So, very standard, but once again, 5-star light cones, you're getting 5-star stats from it. And as long as you're getting good buffs within the passive, 5 stars are usually the way you want to go if you have them, right? Now, there is another one here, which is this one. I would say this is probably going to be your best 4-star option. Good night and sleep well. For every debuff the target enemy has, the damage dealt by the wearer increases by 12%, stacking up to 3 times. And it also applies to DOT. So because this is a very DOT focused, very debuff focused, which is what a Kafka team wants to do, I would say this is definitely the 4-star option you want to run. There's another decent 4-star one here. This Fermata one, I think could be decent as well. It's Break Effect. See, this is the one I was looking at. And I'm like, man, something like this would be really good on like Ron Mai, but Ron Mai isn't Nihility, right? So, but yeah, Break Effect I think can still be very good. And we've seen with Ron Mai, Break Effect, if you build with Break Effect, man, it is very powerful. So with Ron Mai, I have the thing where I'm like entering battles and the whole waves are just dying from the Break Effect. It's kind of crazy. But this one specifically increases damage by shock and wind shear. So the reason why this one isn't necessarily as much because of the break effect, but specifically gives you a buff to shock, which is Kafka's main DOT. And it's going to help improve DOT damage. So I think that could also be a solid option. If you don't have any of those, then look for just the best 4-star, or if you're desperate, you might have to go to a 3-star if you're a brand new player. But I feel like those are going to be some suitable light cone options, right? So with that, let's go ahead. We're going to hop into the showcase here. And once again, I don't actually have Kafka. So we're going to run it through the aptitude showcase, and we're going to go ahead and look at her stats within here. So let's go ahead and do a trial here with Kafka. So this here is going to explain everything, but what we'll do is we'll just go to the character page like I normally would. Now keep in mind, this is going to be kind of like, we would call this a max build Kafka, but I would say like kind of on the lower end, because they usually don't max out the traces. Yeah, they put the traces at 8s. So, you know, just know that this Kafka won't look as good as yours if you full build her to 8, right? Relic set, they did give her the shock set instead of the DOT set, so I think that's another slight downgrade to this Kafka build, so we'll just keep that in mind also. But they do have her with the really good light cone, which a lot of you guys might not have, right? So if we look at her actual kit, let's look at what she's doing here, right? So her basic attack is just lightning damage scaled off of attack. Her talent, after an ally of Kafka uses a basic attack on an enemy, Kafka immediately launches a follow-up attack, deals lightning damage, scaled off of her attack to that target, with a 100% chance to inflict shock equivalent to that applied by her ultimate to the attacked enemy target, lasting for 2 turns. This effect can be triggered 1 time per turn. So you're basically getting extra follow-up attacks with extra lightning damage, right? And it's going to inflict shock, which counts as a DOT. So all these DOT buffs you're going to be having, it's going to improve that damage. Some of her bonus effects, and these I believe come from traces. If an enemy is defeated while shocked, Kafka regenerates more energy, which is awesome. And then Thorns, the base chance for target enemies to get shocked by the ultimate, the technique, or the talent increases by 30%. So essentially increases her effect hit rate, right, for her DOTs. Her skill deals lightning damage scaled off of her attack and lightning damage scaled off of her attack to enemies adjacent to it. If the enemy currently is receiving a DOT, all DOTs currently placed on that enemy immediately produce damage equal to 71% of their original damage, or whatever percent based on your skill level. So this is the thing that's really cool about Kafka, is you run her in a DOT setup, inflict all these debuffs. Normally, you know, these debuffs, they act like a poison in a traditional role-playing game, right? The enemies take a turn, they tick from the poison. Well, in this game, they take a turn, they take their bleed, they take their wind shear, they take their shock, all that stuff just triggers. Kafka's making it so that when you use your skill, you're triggering those essentially off turn. You're triggering them in extra time when they're not supposed to trigger. This really pumps up the damage, right? Ultimate deals lightning damage scaled off of her attack to all enemies, and it's going to inflict the enemies with shock, immediately take damage from their current shock state, equal to 95% of its original damage. Shock lasts for 2 turns. While shocked, enemies receive lightning DOT scaled off of her attack at the beginning of each turn. So in addition, on her ultimate, she is triggering all of the shocks beforehand also. So once again, getting extra triggers on those. This has a bonus effect on it. When the ultimate is used, enemy targets will now receive damage immediately from all currently applied DOT sources instead of just the shock state. So essentially, when you have this maxed out and the skill, both her ultimate and skill are going to be triggering all of the DOTs. So this is what makes Kafka so good. And then her field technique is attacks all enemies within a set range. After entering battle, deals lightning damage scaled off of her attack, and it's going to inflict shock, which is applied the same one that's applied by the ultimate. for 2 turns. So essentially, you hit the enemies with this, they're going to start off with the shock DOT. It's a great way to start a fight. So let's go ahead and see this in action. Now, in terms of team building, once again, what they give you here on the trial is a very good example of a Kafka team build. All it's missing is that 4th character, which would be a healer. But essentially what you do is you run Kafka with 2 other DOT characters, and then you bring whatever sustain you need, whether that's preservation or harmony. But you want something to make sure that your team stays alive and doesn't die, right? But I talked about this on my Should You Pull video, but if you want a fairly budget team, it's this team right here. Kafka's not budget because she's a premium 5-star character, but you summon for her, and Sampo and Serval are very accessible characters that a lot of players have, and they are very good 4-star DOT characters. So let's go ahead and hop in. We'll open with her attack, so we're going to start with some shock stacks immediately. Okay, bam, we did that. So now our job is to apply a lot of DOTs. So Serval applying the shock. We'll get Serval's ultimate up. They do a pretty good job in these aptitudes too of really setting up in a situation to see it. We've got our boy Sampo. They set up a Serval and Sampo to basically go into ultimate right away, just to give you all the DOTs, and then you can just watch Kafka pop off, right? So Kafka here is going to ultimate. Now any DOTs they have, they're going to trigger here, as well as applying new DOTs, so just big fat damage. And then we've got the boom. We'll hit the boom here. Love the animation on that, by the way. She's got one of the best animations. I love it. And there's an example of the follow-up, right? So what's cool about Kafka is when you use your basic attacks and you're attacking these enemies with the DOTs, you're getting actually like nice follow-up damage from Kafka to like to help that damage out when you're building up your skill points back, right? All right, so Kafka again. Sure, we'll blast again. And the enemy's dead. So there you go. So obviously this is an aptitude showcase, so we can't do like an extended one right now. But it's very basic and simple, right? Apply the DOTs, make the DOTs go boom, and there you go. So Kafka, very, very good character. Talked about this on the Should You Pull. She's not a must pull. It just depends on if you're gonna run DOT, she is a must pull. But if you're not running DOTs or that's not important to you, then you definitely can skip her. But I think she's a really fun character. I think if you enjoy the DOT style, she's definitely a great character to pick up. So anyways, let me know what you think of Kafka. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.